Peace be with you. Since the start of the pandemic, I have become really interested in watching birds. To start with, I put up a bird feeder outside my study window and simply watched all the things that came to it. Then I started taking photos of them and learning what they all were. And when the spring arrived this year and I began working more in my garden than I had over the winter, I became really aware of the amount of birdsong around me, and I decided I wanted to be able to tell which bird was which from the way that they sound, as well as by the way that they look. And this has involved quite a lot of serious listening. A few weeks ago, when I was out in my garden, I heard the first cuckoo of this year. I expect you know what they sound like, but if you don't, pause the video for a moment and get someone else in your class to make the sound for you. The cuckoo sound is a really easy one. We're really lucky in this area that we're quite likely to hear a cuckoo. And that's lucky because in many places they're not very common birds. And they don't live in this country, so we don't hear them all of the time, only for a few months in the spring. And I have found that since hearing that first one a few weeks ago, it seems that I'm hearing them everywhere. It's as though my ears have got themselves tuned in to the call of the cuckoo, and they are listening carefully for it all the time. And when I hear the call of the cuckoo, I think about it. I imagine in my mind the way that it looks. I think about the way that a female cuckoo doesn't make her own nest, but lays her eggs in the stolen nest of another bird. I think about the thousands of miles that a cuckoo will fly every year from Africa to here so that she can lay her eggs in someone else's nest in Dorset. Simply listening to the call of the cuckoo makes me think about lots of other things as well. Listening well is really important. This morning, I was with a small group of people who were doing some listening together. Some of those people might be watching this video, and if you are, you know who you are. We stood outside on the school field, and for one whole minute we were silent and listened to what was around us. We heard lots of different things. There was traffic noise in the background. There were the sounds of voices coming from other groups who were also out on the field. There was bird song, lots of different birds all calling to each other in their own way. There was the sound of wind in the trees rustling the new leaves together. And there were the sounds that we made, gentle breathing, shuffling feet. As we stood and listened, we tried to give our complete attention to what we were doing. We tried to concentrate 100% on listening without being distracted. I think that learning to listen well is really important. Listening to the bird song around me has meant that I have learnt more about the birds that I love. But there are so many other places when listening is really important. If you're old enough to ride a bike on the road, you will know that it's very important to listen to the traffic around you so that you know when a car is coming. If someone has ever tried to explain something to you at home or in school or anywhere else, then you will know that listening is important, especially if you have ever not listened properly and because of that not known what you are supposed to be doing. But I think the time when it's most important to be able to listen well is when someone else has something that they really want to tell us. Sometimes when we listen to other people, what we are really listening for is a space in the conversation where we can say what we want to say. Really good listening doesn't do that. Really good listening means giving our whole attention to what someone else wants to say. And listening like that is not always easy. In the Bible, when Jesus listens to people, he's good at giving them his whole attention. Like the day that he met blind Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus was a beggar. That meant that day after day, he sat by the side of the road, holding out his little wooden bowl and hoping that the people who passed by would put a few coins into it so that he could buy food. Bartimaeus had been blind all his life. And that was why he was a beggar. Back in those days, there were very few jobs that a blind person could do. One day, as Bartimaeus sat by the side of the road, he heard the people around him talking and getting very excited. A famous person, was about to come through their village. Even Bartimaeus had heard about Jesus. Everyone had been talking about the things that Jesus could do. People had been telling amazing stories about how he'd made dead people come back to life, about the way that he talked about God, and about the fact that he could heal people who were unwell. Bartimaeus had even heard a rumour that Jesus had made blind people able to see. And so, as the noise of the people around him made it clear, even to a man who couldn't see, that Jesus was getting closer to where he sat, Bartimaeus began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" The people around Bartimaeus told him to be quiet. They were quite sure that Jesus would not want to listen to the shouts of a blind beggar. Bartimaeus, however, was quite determined. He took no notice of the people around him and continued to shout out louder and louder, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me!" When Jesus came level with the place where Bartimaeus was sitting, the people around him discovered that they had been wrong. Jesus did want to listen to Bartimaeus. The people pushed Bartimaeus forwards to where Jesus was standing on the road. I'm sure it was quite obvious to Jesus what was the matter with Bartimaeus. But Jesus wanted to hear what Bartimaeus had to say for himself. And so Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" And then Jesus stopped speaking and listened for the answer. Bartimaeus spoke, "Teacher, I want to see." Having heard Bartimaeus speak for himself, Jesus said, "Go, your faith has healed you." At that moment, Bartimaeus found that he could see, and full of joy, he left the place where he had been begging and followed Jesus down the road. Jesus and Bartimaeus were not together for very long in that story, but while they were, Jesus listened to Bartimaeus by giving him his whole attention, not being distracted by anything else, not listening for a space where he could say what he wanted to say, but listening in order to understand what exactly it was that Bartimaeus wanted from him. And I think the reason that Jesus listened like that to other people was because of the compassion he had for them. Compassion is understanding the suffering of someone else, understanding what's the matter, and listening carefully to understand what you might be able to do in helping someone to feel better. There's a much more modern story that I heard the other day that's very like the story of Bartimaeus. Not long ago, in a big city, a busy lady was walking down the road. By the side of the road, she saw a homeless lady sitting on the pavement crying. To begin with, the busy lady said to herself, "I have to get to my meeting. I have to go to work. I can't stop now." But as she began to walk on past, she felt really bad about what she was doing. She turned around and went back to the homeless lady. She knelt down beside her on the pavement and said, "Why are you crying?" The homeless lady talked for about 20 minutes, telling the other lady why she was feeling so particularly sad that day. At the end of the description of what the homeless lady's life was like, the busy lady was almost in tears herself, but the homeless lady was smiling. The busy lady said to her, "You look much happier now, but I don't understand why. I haven't done anything." The homeless lady smiled at her. "You listened," she said. "No one ever listens to me, but you listened." Really listening to someone with compassion and giving them your full attention is a very special gift that we can all give to other people. I'm going to finish off with a prayer, and if you'd like to make it your prayer, feel free to say Amen at the end. Dear God, thank you that if we choose to talk to you, you are always there to listen to us. Help us to be people who are prepared to give our time to listen well to those who need it. Amen. Thank you for listening. See you again soon, I hope. Bye for now.